Yo, what's happening, people? I want to welcome you to Flip the Script podcast show. My name is Sol and I am the host. So, on this show, you'll get the opportunity to listen to some inspiring people talking about real, honest, heartfelt, no holds barred transformation stories. We get to hear from ex-drug users, reformed criminals, all sharing their personal stories and how they manage not only to turn their lives around, but now are helping others to do the same. We also get to hear from courageous men and women sharing their experience of surviving high-level trauma and what they are doing or done to start that much-needed healing process.
I grew up really fast. I went from 11 years old, knowing I didn't want to go to school, but I always had that feeling that I didn't fit in. But I always had that thing where I tried to fit in. When my daughter was 2 years old, I went to rehab. I realised that I'd got that moment where I was at that place where, you know, I was desperate, and in desperation, I didn't want to use anymore.
Yo, what's happening, people? I want to welcome you to Flip the Script podcast show.
So, welcome to Flip the Script podcast show. Once again, I've got another guest with me. We've got Frankie, who is from the streets of West London, who currently lives in Somerset. Frankie's been a street homeless, art dealer, drug dealer, club owner. I mean, there's loads in there. So, yeah, I'm sure Frankie can kind of fill us in for that anyway. So, Frankie, how are you doing, man?
We're good, Sol. We're good. We're nearly 60.
Wow.
That's in the day after Valentine's Day.
Wow.
It's counting down, man. It's the 6th of February. It's counting down now. So 60 years,
man.
mate. A lot of my peers are dead.
Well, I'm glad you're not, mate. That's the main thing. Yeah.
No, I must have been a bit more of a wimp, I think. So I'm still here. I'm still here.
I'm glad you are as well, man.
Yeah, I'm good. Happy to be here. I love doing this stuff. Thank you for asking me. Really is a privilege. It really is, and it's a pleasure as well. And yeah, just to get it out of the way, I'm having the jab tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Okay.
In the morning. I don't know if it's Oxford or Pfizer one, but yeah, I've heard with the Pfizer one, you go a bit hard with the Pfizer one, but let's see what happens, eh?
Listen, I'm up with you, man. It's about keeping safe, innit? And you got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? You know what? I was going to introduce you as Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I just urge, man, to say Frankie Goes to Hollywood, but
we've been there.
Somerset, yeah.
No. Normally, when I meet people I've never met before, especially if I'm at one of the art festivals or at Cheltenham, which is my favourite art festival, or Upfest, or one of those. People go, "Hey, Frankie, do you remember me?" And I wish I had $1 for every time that was said. Seriously.
Mate, listen, I understand, man. People used to always sing De La Soul songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 Feet High and Rising. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. But yeah.
My favourite track of De La Soul was Black Woman. It kind of was the odd one on the album, wasn't it? You know, or was that De La Soul? Or was that the Jungle Brothers? I can't remember.
It might have been the Jungle Brothers.
You're on the spot now.
I think it was the Jungle Brothers. It's all right, mate. Listen, we're human, man. Remember, you're going to be 60, man. You know, I'm going to be 49 this year, so we can get away with like not remembering stuff. So, Frankie, like not quickly, one thing back. Tell me a little bit about what's going on for you. Where, you know, obviously I've kind of said a few things that you have gone through experience-wise, like the art dealing. I don't know if you're still doing that. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and where you come from, man.
When would you like me to start? You know, do you want me to tell you about when I was a baby? Do you want me to tell you about when I was a teenager? Where would you like this to come from?
I don't know. Tell me where you think you need to start. I mean, I'm leaving that to you, man. It's your story, man.
I'm quite proud because I like the tag of being born in the City of London. And my father was Irish, and the family were not Irish, but they lived in Ireland. The family originally came from the south of France. And I didn't know that till I met my cousins later on. So I always thought my and ancestry on my father's side was Irish, but they're not. They're actually French. And when you look on the map on the south of France, it's all Roche, Rochelle, and so on. There's lots of my family name there. And yeah, my mother was brought up in Norfolk, and for many years as a kid, we always believed my mother was Italian, because I grew up with the Italian refugees in Clerkenwell. They were actually called raddies. They were called radicals. The Cockneys used to call them raddies, and it wasn't a term of racism. What it was they were the radicals. They were against Mussolini, and they had to leave, otherwise they'd and they came to resettle in London. And I grew up and went to the Italian church as a kid, Sunday school. You know, very middle class where I lived, but we were very working class. But the area was very middle class, and so it was really nice. And then I got to 11, I went to school in Camden Town, and it was a bit of a culture shock all of a sudden.
So,
yeah.
Frankie, quickly, so how did you know that it was different? Like, you was a working class and the people around you where you lived were middle class. What was it that you noticed more?
That's with hindsight.
Okay.
That's with hindsight. That kind of got revealed when I went to secondary school, because I went to secondary school and I stayed there for a year. And in the area that I came from, it was boys and girls, and school would take you on holidays and stuff like that. And I went to this place called Sir William Collins Secondary Modern Comprehensive. They kind of stretched it right out, the name of it. It's now called Islington Arts, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a grammar school originally, but most of the kids that went there were too dumb. And I got there, and it was just 1,000 boys, all gangs wanting to kill each other. And I thought, I can't do this. So I went to work down the market. I somehow didn't have a schoolboy's head. I had a head of I want to buy things and get things. And I was already using. I was already smoking and drinking. So, and, you know, imagine an 11-year-old smoking, you know, drinking. And when I look at 11-year-olds, I look at my 12-year-old granddaughter today, and I think to myself,
Crazy.
how do you even achieve that? But, you know, so just to quickly skip from that, I grew up really fast. I went from 11 years old, knowing I didn't want to go to school, forging letters for my mother so I didn't have to go to school. I used to get my mum's letters and put them up against the window and copy them by putting a letter on top of it, the handwriting. My claim to fame was I told the school we were going to America for 6 weeks, and they suck at it. But for 6 weeks I had to bunk off, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So yeah, I got a job down Exmouth Market, and I was working down there on the fruit and vegetable for a while. And then, yeah, I just didn't go to school anymore. It came along, was like the summer of 75 and summer of 76 were coming along. I was already out clubbing. I was going to clubs. My grandmother's sister got me a job in a club when I was 15 down in Covent Garden, because Covent Garden was just up the road from where I lived. And the reason she did that was because she didn't want me to be counsellor estate, because I lived on this estate where it was part of a gang. We were called St John Street, the gang, and there was big St John Street and there was little St John Street, and we used to throw bottles at the school up the road. And yeah, for a Sunday afternoon, a bit of entertainment, because the shops used to shut where I lived in the city of London. What we used to do was smash the window of the co-op and call the police. That was the entertainment. So,
mate, I remember them days on a Sunday, man. Days of no shops, man. Do you remember that? Like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
It'd be boring.
Yeah.
Seriously boring, man.
And it's funny because I always had the urge as well to got to turn off Siri. Always had the urge to the intrusive thing. Always had the urge to want to change how I feel as well. And I try not to talk too much about recovery, because addiction for me has shaped my life, and it's something I try not to talk about, and I've had to practice not to talk about when we speak with the average bear, because it's a bit boring for them. So
just quickly, so you say, stopping where you said about, you wanted to change the way you feel. So tell me, what was you feeling that you wanted to change?
I don't know. It was just, I now know, because I went and saw a psychiatrist for 3 years, and I've had a lot of counselling. My mother put me in, because I didn't go to school, my mother put me in counselling when I was 11.
Wow.
So yeah, I was doing a bit like my granddaughter at the moment's become a goth who listens to K-pop, right? Okay. So it's a bit wacky. She's got blonde hair, but she dyes it black. She's tall and skinny, and she listens to all this kind of Korean bing, 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 bing music, and does this funny dances. My time was, being, drug taking, climbing out the window, going clubbing. There was a time I remember, which comes up right now, don't really recall this at times, and I was working in a club called Shagarama's, okay, which then became the Roxy. Some guy bought it and turned it into the Roxy, which was the punk club. But before it was a punk club, it was the only legal gay club in London. And my grandmother's sister had got me the job in there to change my perspective, because I was what we now call a hood rat. I was kind of a hood rat with a motorcycle who was trying to wear the best kind of Lacoste and, that kind of chavvy look. And everything changed for me with that. And I remember there was this time I was collecting glasses. It had become the Roxy. And these two girls came in dressed in stockings and suspenders. And I remember talking to them and trying to chat them up. I was a kid. They were women. And they went like that, and they give me some sulfate. And I was flying about this place, but I remember being 2 o'clock in it. Well, 2 o'clock the next day, wanting to say to me, Mum, I've had some speed. I feel terrible. But I managed to get through it. And that would have been one of the worst things I could have ever done, to tell my mum that, because she wouldn't have known how to handle it. But I was starting to freak out a little bit. But you know what happened? The following week, I was looking for them girls down the club, try and do it again. That was a little bit of a moment in history, working at London's first ever punk club. And I met lots of punk bands who were all starting off, and I got involved with some of them, and with some guys, did a bit of roadieing with them. And that was while holding down a job as a trainee jeweler, because I worked in Hatton Garden as well. And
what made you go into jewellery? What was that made you, what was it? Is there any particular person, or was it
no, it was this. So one of the things I got really early on was that I wasn't a thief. Inside myself, I'm not a dishonest, horrible, thieving person. And I don't strategically think, a bit like the guys in the bookies, I don't strategically covet stuff and want to work out how to get it. Okay. And I think that's mainly because of my parents' upbringing. But there was a lot of people around me who were involved in a lot of that. And as we were growing up, we all wanted stuff. And, like a lot of kids, I bought motorcycles, I bought stuff, but most of the stuff I learned to be a bit of a Del boy, a bit of a wheeler dealer. And a lot of my friends were really good at going out stealing and breaking into buildings. But we had two kind of rules. One was you didn't beg, and the other one was you didn't break into people's houses.
Yeah. Listen, the same.
But
same,
that's
same
just the moral.
Yeah. Mate, it was the same in where I come. East London was exactly the same, man. One thing you can't do is house breaking, mate. If you was a housebreaker, it was scum, as they would say, and begging. There's a lot of pride and all that stuff with the begging in it as well. I think people just think, if you
see, if I look at, say, when I was 19, right? I'm 19 years old. It was like at 19, there wasn't. I'm trying to think what age that was. I think it was 1980. I think, not sure. when I was 19. And there wasn't any begging. The only begging there would be up the Chapel Market, would be an Irish lady go, I put a bit of heather on you and purse me palm and all that. Seriously, that was about as far as it went. And then all of a sudden, bang.
Yeah.
It was like as if it was a new trade, and it seemed to be everywhere. And it was one of those things of, when you could go out robbing or stealing, that was kind of in the hierarchy. If you went below that, then you was a wrong un. So it was, so there was all that to contend with, and so on. And it seemed like we didn't.
Yeah.
It seemed like we didn't have much route. It seemed like you either become a cab driver. Don't like cab drivers. Nothing against cab drivers, but they're always lonely, and they always say this thing like, "You wouldn't believe who I had in the cab," you know. So, and I used to live around a lot of cab drivers because it was a good place to live where I lived and be a cab driver. Or you worked in the print, or you was a thief. So, and just up the road was Hatton Garden, and I just thought to myself, I've got to do something different. I was always a different kid, but I always had that feeling that I didn't fit in. But I always had that thing where I tried to fit in, and there was things that I wanted to do that it seemed like a lot of the people who was around me didn't want to do. I'm really envious, so, of the kids with the internet today, because there was things like, they used to do things like the bug jam and stuff like that, and I used to say to my mates, let's go to the bug jam, and they used to go, why? You know. And then that's what happened with the club outlet. The club outlet gave me that boost, and then I was working down the Marquee for a little while. It's very easy to get a job in a club. You just work for nothing, then they give you money, you know. And I hadn't got to the stage of being really dishonest, and I met a few bands. You know, there was a band was headlining there called Ultravox, who were doing fairly well, and there was a few things, and then you get linked into people, and then it got to a stage where we linked into some people working for CBS Records, and they had a pass, if you was a worker for them, to get into the 100 Club. So every Thursday night, we used to go to the 100 Club, a little group of us. I was getting older, in my 20s now. And it was like, because you had the CBS pass and went to the 100 Club, it was like, met all these legendary bands, met Dillinger, met it was amazing. I remember sitting there in the back of the club, because it was a stinky little club, the 100 Club, and Bob Dylan came up and said hello to us, because we were like the cool guys who had a bit of path and hanging around. And yeah, it was really, really kind of amazing. You know, I see some really amazing. The album Three Piece Chicken and Chips have not long been out, so you got to understand, I was a kind of kid to a certain extent that came from, the first album I ever bought was Alice Cooper, Killer. You know, really white boy kind of desperado stuff, but it just went the whole gauntlet with the music. And I think after that, I must have spent the next 5 years of my life just listening to dub reggae. It was just like, it moved to Coxsone sound system. I couldn't listen to anything else. Wow. So it wasn't that I had an identity crisis. I just realized I wanted to escape and get out and do something different, and I didn't know how. That's the envy of the people on the internet. It's the thing of wanting to do something. I went up to my parents when I was 19, and I said to them, listen, I want to go to art school. Everyone's told me to go to art school, and they said, no, you need a proper job. You need a career. You need a proper job. And it's like, well, like what? And they're saying,
was you any good at? So was you a bit of a drawer as well, like a sketcher and stuff like that? Was you something that you used to do? For you to want to go art school? Okay.
See, I see like the T-shirt you got on.
Yeah.
I would look at that and I'd think to myself, I want one of them. Let's make one.
Okay.
You know, I'd work that. I worked out that with a knife and a bit of paper, you could cut it. And, you know, I never wanted to be a fantastic
Okay.
painter or decorator. I just worked out that, you know, I wanted to be, I could do things, and, you know, I was just very dexterous, you know. I like making little things and doing things. And I was someone who I liked to have speakers and the amplifier and all the rest of that stuff in the house. And I used to like take my motorcycle to pieces and all those kind of things, you know.
Yeah.
So
No, I get you, man. You just kind of remind me, like, I was just like very much, man. It's like I was a very music, amps, speakers, take this apart, wire this up, wire a graphic equalizer up, and like, I was always into that
graphic
kind of like anything.
equalizer.
Yeah. Do you remember them?
Don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's
yeah,
set.
we had there was definitely set in a certain way. Do you know what I mean? So,
Oh, my world changed when I got a Sony Trinitron. I tell you what,
wow.
I looked at.
You had a Sony Trinitron.
Oh yeah. Well, you
God
know,
dealer TVs back in the day, mate. Oh,
cool.
mate. Yeah.
I looked on Google, and I think I had every VHS and Betamax player you could get. Just nuts. When I realised you could take a Betamax and put it in a VHS, that changed my world, honestly. You swap the tapes over. Yeah, the tape's the same, the box is just different.
Oh.
Yeah, they charge you $50 in the shops to do that.
Mate.
I was Del Boy ducking and diving.
Okay.
It's too far away now, this.
Yeah.
What happened was somebody robbed the jewelers that I was working. I was working in a the company's gone now, and it was on the corner of Hatton Garden. I was a manter and a diamond miller. A manter is someone who makes chains and rings, and a diamond miller is when you cut stuff using diamonds. And some men with masks came in and robbed the place. Right? We was all sitting there laughing, just thought it was funny, you know, going, you know, leave us some money and all that stuff. And of course the police came and everything, and we all went under lockdown, and they tipped out everyone's locker. And when they opened up my locker, they found 10 calculators. Now, calculators hadn't even come out.
Okay.
I had a box of calculators, and the old bill were like looking at these calculators going, what the fuck? Well, what had happened was a couple of weeks previous, I had some friends who had crawled some warehouse, got the calculators, and we didn't know what to do with them. They were so new. We was looking at them, and they had like 1 million buttons on them. And they were, at the time, they was about 100 quid a calculator.
Well,
so they were free.
Ones.
Yeah.
Scientific ones, yeah. I remember
For the public, like, you know, a bit like Tomorrow's World stuff.
Yeah.
So they were freaking out. So this is a naughty story. Yeah, so get nicked for these calculators, get refused remand, get refused bail, going to remand, whilst they're trying to work out where they came from, because these were on the telly, not on the street. So I told a friend of mine that I'm in, like, I don't know what's going on. We wasn't even old enough really and clued up enough about having barrister or solicitor or anything. So the firemen were on strike at the time. And yeah, so my mate, as any 18-year-old uneducated person coming from the area I came from, the best idea they came up with was the place we robbed, I didn't rob it, wasn't me. Okay. Let's burn it down. Perfect sense. We'll burn the evidence.
Okay.
So they burnt it down, but the Green Goddesses were in town because the fire brigade were on strike. But actually burnt down the whole street. About 5 companies went up in flames. Well, they did. It was right. Didn't have any information or anything. So they sent me off to Rochester to scare me, to the Borstal to scare me. Wow. I was there for a week. I rang my mum up. it was really different back there, the really early
Did they have cockroaches
80s,
back
late
then as well?
70s.
Did they still have
Yeah.
the cockroaches then? Yeah. They
Yeah.
were babies then, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cockroach.
And
that was like the cockroach, yeah.
I rang my mum up and I told her I'm in Rochester Borstal. And she said, good, stay there. And it was like, because she felt I was bringing shame, you know. So I understand it. I was a headache as a young person. And a week later, I got out. I turned up back at home, told my mum I'm moving out. The council gave me a flat. I moved out, got my girlfriend pregnant, got a job down the print, was working at night clubbing. Yeah, started selling a little bit of puff. Started drinking Swan Lager obsessively, gold cans of Swan. That was the lager at the time. Yeah, going to, there used to be a lot of, it started getting less and less at this time of being at Covent Garden. The punk scene had grown and gone into the record world and the clubs and so on. And it was happening over in East London, down Hackney Road and so on, all the pubs down there. And it became a bit more, it became a bit more smaller minded and more aggressive. And of course, when you're selling puff and you're doing a bit of other stuff as well, that's kind of where your market is, what it seemed like it at the time. And all the parts that having a lock-in was a big thing in those days. Well, yeah, things weren't getting better, but I was doing okay financially. I was doing really all right. And as I say, I had my own flat. Yeah, I wasn't very good boyfriend at all. You know, I'd cheat on my girlfriend, everything. I was very disrespectful. And I started looking for a niche. This is where I think I was slightly different. I started looking for a niche. So I set myself up as a West Coast disc jockey, right? And
what was your t-shirt name?
No, I didn't have one. Didn't have one. They didn't. You didn't need a D. In those days, you didn't talk. You just played the records.
Okay.
There wasn't no running things into each other.
Oh, so you didn't have just the mic and all that and show off.
No, that was all there. You just never used it.
Oh, right, okay.
You never used it because, how could I put it? Nothing. It hadn't happened yet. Detroit hadn't woke up. Techno hadn't happened. I would play at time. I'm playing Fleetwood Mac in the pubs and stuff like that, and I'm like, you know, having a puff. And the guy who had this pub called The Surprise, he said to me, "Would you like a permanent gig?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm thinking, being a DJ, I'll leave all of this and become a star, kind of thing, you know. So he said, "Okay." Got me in with his company and. It got me being a DJ, and I went and played at 3 different pubs only in the lunchtime. And what it was putting the music on for the strippers. So I didn't realise this.
How old was you, Frank? Then
20 years old.
What is the pubs in Hackney are we talking about on the Cambridge Heath Road?
Sometimes it would be the one right at the corner, which is called the Horns.
Okay, not the Royal, the Axe, Brands.
But it all depends.
Not that I've visited them.
Yeah, it was Brands. No, it's Brands, isn't it? It was the Horns. Yeah.
There's a lot of little.
It was originally called the Horns. Yeah. And then, there was another one further up. I don't know if it's still there. I bet it's years. Called September's.
I've heard of it.
There was a couple. I didn't like doing over that side, but what it was I used to do a lot of the pubs around Mount Pleasant as well, over where I lived, which was EC1, because they used to fill up at lunchtime with postmen. Postmen all used to come from out of Mount Pleasant post office sorting centre and come all in. So, you know, the girls used to walk around with, you know, with it in their underwear with pint glasses, collecting money, And I used to play all the different things and do little drum rolls I'd find on, you know, and so on, you know. So yeah, did that for a while. That's one of those things that it's really, and especially when you're a young bloke, it's like, wow. And then after 3 months of doing it, it's like, it's just work. What time we're finishing? Seen it all, done it all, you know. And then you start to realize, you start to label your audience. You've got, you know, your little bald-headed man at the front who's there every day, you know. just crazy. I got to own this. I used to do things like this. The stripper used to come on, and be on the stage, and I'd be playing the record for the stripper, and then that was the length of time the stripper was on the stage. When they did that, when people put their glasses down, I used to get a jalapeno, and I used to run around the top of the beer glasses. So when the stripper finished and they came back and picked their glass up, they began. And that's how I got me amusement. The maths used to be on fire. You know, it's great. But that's... Go on.
Do you know what I'm really intrigued about? What song did you play for? What was the favourite song for the stripper? What would be... Can you remember that song?
Oh.
Come back to it. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. All it comes up is we used to do the Blue Coat Boy as well, which was at the Angel. That was the other one we used to do. No, come back to it. It used to be some girly song, some love girly song. I just can't think. And from there, what happened really was I was trying to be a printer. I was failing. I had qualification as a printer. I'd left the jewellery stuff. I just couldn't, you know, after the scenario that went down, and just jewellery wasn't happening for me. And I got to a stage where all of a sudden somebody said to me about there was big money to be earned in timeshare. And I had some friends who are in Tenerife who were doing timeshare. And I had a flat in it. I had a flat in Islington. And I said to a couple of pals, can you look after the flat? And I'm going off to do timeshare. Well, I went off to do timeshare, and to be honest, it grabbed at I couldn't really do it. What was happening was you were getting all these guys, because Maggie Thatcher had been in power and they'd lost their jobs as miners and they had their pensions. And basically what they did was they came over. We talked them in, we got them pissed and talked them into buying a timeshare, which is basically renting a room for 2 weeks. You know, but the other 50 weeks of the year is rented out to someone else. So their place just deteriorates really quick. And I found it something I didn't like doing. I think I realised it must have challenged me morally, because we was ripping people off, I felt. But, you know, it's about not having morals when you're making money to a certain extent. And I like partying. And where I was staying in Tenerife, there was a big complex there, which was called, in Playa de las Americas, there was a complex there, which was called Veronica. And they just kept adding to it. And it's basically, it's a tower block on its side, and there's like 80 clubs in the place. But they're really, all the bottom ones are really snide kind of Spanish, English holiday maker clubs. And on the middle level, they're all got the holiday party here for 2 weeks. And then you kind of got the top level, which is a bit more club orientated, clubs where the roof used to open and stuff like that, and palm trees.
What year was this then? So what year was this when you were doing this?
This has got to be late 80s.
Okay, so has house music come in yet? Has house music
it was just here yet? It was just cracking. Two things happened. I was working in a club called Paradise Lost, picking up jars, helping out, doing all sorts of things. My cousin was living over there at the time, and there was a little gang of British that used to come in there and throw the girls' handbags out the windows, the holiday makers' handbags and that. It wasn't that nice a place. Wouldn't recommend it. But all of a sudden, the DJ got a record one day, and we'd been listening to Eric B and Rakim, and it used to be all about Paid in Full. Yeah, it was all about that. All about that. And we was listening to that, and all the kind of house tunes around that. And then all of a sudden we got this record in and we played it and you couldn't hear it properly. The way it was produced over the sound system, you couldn't hear it properly. So we kind of didn't do nothing with it. And we was there for about a month. And then the guy pulled the record out, one of the DJs, and put it on again. And the whole place went fucking mad. And we was like, what the fuck is this? And it was Soul to Soul. They just released it. But what it was Jazzy B's.
Wouldn't that be fair? What was the song?
Back to Life, basically.
Back to Life.
Yeah. And Jazzy B's voice was so low. They was just like that on the speakers. And we couldn't make it out properly. All we had was that's all we got with it. So we had to actually adjust the sound system in the club to play it. And that was kind of a turning point. Things all changed from there, because before then it was more like the European new beat or the Detroit kind of music. Yeah. And then you got the American kind of Eric B. and Rakim stuff, I'll say the American, I know Detroit's American, but there was just that the music was just rolling and spilling, and it was all about having the latest tape and all that. And I did that for about a year and a half.
Were you still using it? Was you still using drugs and stuff like that?
Puffing all the time.
Okay.
Coke when I could get it. I'd already had a habit with a brown, and but Tenerife gave me the option to escape. You couldn't really, you could get it there, but it was a lot harder to get. It was more about ecstasy at the time. The E's are about, and they were all brought in by the English, and so because it was about keeping the holiday makers all good. And then I remember it was mad time because it's like people come on holiday. It's easy to have one night stands. You live in this world of, I did some bucket list things like sleeping on the beach and stuff like that, just fun things kind of thing, being woke up by the Garda. But it was also, I had a couple of pivotal moments when I was out there, which did change my kind of take on life. There was a moment when I watched this couple on the steps of the club having sex, and then I looked on the other side and there was someone puking up, and then there was one of the guarders walking up, and you could see where he had his gun down his really tight trousers. And I was looking, I was thinking, this is a mad place, and so I got pneumonia, and things changed, and I had to leave. So I got back to England, got back to my flat. Hadn't really been very monetary with it. I hadn't really earned any money, but I was itching to get away again. So as soon as I got over the pneumonia, I did a bit of printing work to earn some money, because that was the trade that I'd learned. And a friend of mine said, why don't you go to Amsterdam, do some printing? There's print shops out there. And I thought, what a good idea. Why hadn't I thought of this before? So I went over to Amsterdam, and I was working in a print shop there, and I lasted a month. I had a month, and
Why did you last only a month? What happened?
I couldn't function anymore. I was too stoned, and I'm coming into work, and they didn't seem to mind over there whether you're stoned or not. Did you have a habit still? Did you have a habit all through this time? Like, so you had a heroin habit, is that right? I did before, lost it when I went to Tenerife. And then when I came back, it picked up again. Everyone was on the gear when I came back, and there was AIDS posters everywhere. Literally AIDS posters. It either had choose life or AIDS posters, right? And it was like, it freaked me out, because being in Tenerife, it's not being flash, but being with holiday makers, you'd be sleeping with someone each week, someone different. So it was like that thing of, I didn't know how many partners or who I'd slept with. I was a young bloke and so on, but I came back and I kind of wanted to escape it. So what happened you was
you was in Amsterdam. You lasted a month.
I'll skip through this. Amsterdam was something else. End up on the street in Amsterdam, I ended up ripping off tourists, selling Novocaine instead of cocaine, running around the clubs, working in the milk bar, doing all these things. It was there for 6 months, went up to Rotterdam, stayed there for a while. Things were not getting good. Habit, not having a regular place to stay, friends not lasting very long, very lonely. I didn't really have any friends. Everyone who I spoke about as a friend was back in London, but their worlds are moving on, not mine. So when I got back, just trying to think, because there's some breaks in my mind with this, because I took a lot of acid as well. When I got back to London, yeah, I met a girl. I was selling Red Seal Black, and I took her out to Tenerife. We came back. She got pregnant, and out of all the girls got pregnant, I thought, well, if she gets pregnant, this is going to be life changing. I was trying to change my life all the time, and I didn't know what the problem was at all. And yeah, so things went from bad to worse. She had the baby. We were both on the gear. My daughter was born, and oh well. Then it started trying to function. I just kept having these epiphanies of, if I don't sell drugs, if I don't do criminality, if we find somewhere else to live, we're going to save ourselves. And I didn't realize it was that kind of phrase, people, places, and things that I had to change. And she got sick of being sick, and she left, and she moved in with some other guy who was serving up. I find out later on. But I wasn't, and I was trying to make a go of it. So when my daughter, this was 92 now, when my daughter was 2 years old, I went to rehab. I gave my daughter to the ex-mother-in-law, or the mother-in-law, and I went to rehab. And
so was the daughter, sorry, quickly to go back a bit. So your daughter, when your girlfriend who had your kid, she effed off with a fella, or she moved in with some guy, but you kept your daughter with you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So you were picking up your daughter from the. Okay.
Yeah, and it gets a bit more complex. My life hasn't been a straight flight. It's a bit more complex. And then, yeah, I went off to rehab. And when I came out of rehab, which was 6 weeks later, this somewhere in Bognor it was. It's meant to be the only rehab in Bognor. I haven't got a clue.
Raven's Court. Must have been Raven's.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah. I remember not getting kicked out, but they said to me, I threw a paddy because I wanted fresh orange and they did orange squash. I mean, some excuse, you know. I wanted orange squash. I wanted fresh orange. They did orange squash. I've always had a grandiosity about me.
Yeah.
You know, lying in the gut.
How dare they?
Stars. How dare they?
Yeah, concentrated oranges. But
So,
you know who I am.
So I came back. I was back. I still had a place to live, and I was running around. I didn't know what to do. My partner had left me, had a baby, who was now with her ex-mother-in-law, and I'm running around. And I went back to doing street robberies. I didn't have a job anymore. I wasn't working in the print, you know, and I really got caught up in robbing off licenses. Excuse me. Got caught up in robbing off licenses. I found out I devised a way of how to scare the people working in the off license and basically snatch money out of the till and steal bottles of wine. And it worked once, and then it worked 17 times. And then finally I got caught. And thankfully in those times, the videos were bad, everything was bad. The recognition was bad. I kept changing, you know, my appearance. You know, I'd learned a lot from my early days of, you know, how to look different, you know, from other friends around me, you know, so people couldn't say who you was. So I went to, in 92, I went to prison. I was at the court in Parliament Square. I was in the Crown Court in the City of London. They sent it to Parliament Square, and because they couldn't deal with this technicality, what they had, they gave me 9 months. Now no one gets 9 months. I had a squeeze. But the recommendation from the judge was that I'll get 8 years if I come back, because the judge had written on the report, and he was kind of right, that I was a career criminal who hadn't been caught yet. So I thought, okay. But I was such an idiot. I was such an idiot because I did 9 months, but I kept getting urine screened and kept getting caught. I was spending my canteen on buying bits of puff and drinking hooch and all that stuff. And after going Wandsworth, Wayland, High Point, it was 2 years later, 94, when they released me. And I was only I could have been out in 4 months, 4.5 months. But I don't know if it was fear of getting out of the place or just being an idiot. I like to put it down to just being an idiot. And yeah, well, when I came out, I really, really wanted to get clean, and I really wanted to change my life. And whilst I was inside, I'd gone to an NA meeting. One of the prison officers, when I was in Wandsworth, just before it was distributed, said, opened the cell and said to me, just really blurted out of the blue, "Roach, NA meeting, you're on the list." I was like, "What?" He said, "NA meeting, you're on the list." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Narcotics Anonymous, they talk about drugs." And I was like, "Okay." He went, "You'll get some tobacco there." I was like, he must have seen me swoop, which is like a no in prison. Don't swoop, you know.
Listen, mate, just being in 1O, mate, and getting a bit of time out yourself, you could go anywhere, whether it's NA, AA, it wouldn't matter. Anything, any kind of time out, you do it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there was a couple of moments in that. I went to an NA meeting. There's a famous footballer doing the meeting. I didn't really gel at it, but people were kind of clean there, and I kind of got the gist that this might be a way, because someone said in the meeting that if you're thinking about your gate release money, that you're in trouble. And that registered with me, because I was thinking of how many different ways I was going to spend my gate release money, whether it was 2 brown, 1 white, 2 brown, whether it was a cab straight to the dealer, you know. And I thought about that for months, you know. And the further away we got from London, the more I was worried about how much of my gate release money was being spent in traveling, you know. So yeah, that was
you said
that was go on, sorry.
So you said that you actually, now you found that you wanted to get clean. When was that? When did that happen? When did the penny drop for you to say, like, oh, you know what, I can't do this no more, I need to get, this is the problem?
That was when I was in prison. That was a culmination of a few things. Of when I first started trying, one was I didn't want my daughter to I wanted to support my daughter, because I didn't want her to be on her own. Her mum wasn't looking after her. And the other thing was I remember saying to, after about 2 or 3 NA meetings in Wandsworth before I got distributed, I remember saying to the prison officer, "Why did you pick me to go to the NA meeting?" I was really puzzled, and he turned around and he said, "Very easy." He said, "When we unlock," he said, "we look to see who comes out of the cell and goes running in and out of all the cells." He said, "It's very easy." And I got it, you know. And after that, I looked myself, and then when I was up the other prisons, I noticed the same thing, you know. The minute the addicts, you open the door, the ones that don't want to stop kind of thing, they're out the cell and they're bang, 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 they're running around like their asses on fire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I came out of there not knowing that one does the damage. Coming back to the station, they stopped in the van. We all jumped out, went in the off license and got a can of tenants. By the time I got back to London, of course, got to have a treat. And then things just got from bad to worse. But I went to 12-step recovery after that. I went to 12-step recovery. I went to Narcotics Anonymous. And I just went and I started to accumulate some abstinence and then not abstinence. And I started to learn about going back to treatment, because I didn't really know about treatment, or going to rehab, as they used to call it. And yeah, it was about I'm not sure of the date. I think it was about 96, 97, and I went to a place out in the West Country, out where I live now, called Barley Wood, and I think that was the time. I'm not 100% sure. And I was at a meeting in North London, which was my home group at the time, up in the Angel. And a guy who was wanting to be my sponsor, Derek, who's now dead, I didn't realise he was actually using, but he was sponsoring people. So it was just, NA was a bit different in those days. You could buy drugs in NA at the time, and we couldn't imagine that today. But they said, you know, before you get to rehab, remember to take a tennis racket. So I thought, wow, you know, I'd already been rehab, but Don Johnson, Don Johnson, Miami Vice, he'd been in Betty Ford's.
Yeah.
He had his issue was he wasn't allowed to wear his Ray-Bans while he was in Betty Ford's, and he was kicking off about it. And I went down to Lily White's in Piccadilly, nicked the tennis racket, nicked a load of Fred Berry stuff, put all my white Fred Perrys on, and went to Barley Wood. You know, making everything turned up there. It wasn't until I got there that I realised there was no tennis courts. Bastards.
You're walking around in the treatment centre with a racket and you're short. Yeah, you're right. Let's go.
I even nicked some swimming trunks because I thought there was a swimming pool there. You know, it's like fucking. I thought it was going on holiday.
Like the thing is, I get it because like in that time, I mean, and even, you know, for a few years, people that went to rehab were people that were very rich, and you would think it was like a, you know, like a bit of a holiday kind of getaway, and they're going, you're going to go to just, you know, stop taking drugs and drink or alcohol, whatever you're there for, but you can also have a little bit of a good time while you're doing it.
Yeah,
and it's really expensive, so you've got to look the part in you. And, I can
and
imagine you in shorts, Frank.
I've never played tennis in my life. I've never played tennis in my life. You know, I was very Del Boy Trotter. Seriously, I was very Del Boy Trotter. And then I got to chuck this one and give him a shout as well. Came out, tried to go to meetings, tried to not use all this, really self-will tried stuff. And in 1999, I was back in treatment again. I was back in Milton House Treatment Centre, and I met Simon Mason, who's in the I-Town Pirates. I came into experienced person now with treatment. I am with rehab. I'm fucking.
You got the
five rehabs to me name. You know, I'm qualified now. I walk into this treatment centre, and this guy Clive from Brixton, who I've never met since, who was a bit of a nightmare. He said, there's a geezer in there. He said, slept with all the girls in there and they kicked him out. I went, really? I'm thinking, win-win, you know. What a result. It was a lovely rehab as well, up North London. And met Simon Mason. He was only there for a couple of weeks and then he shot off. But he was a character when I met him. And his band, the I-Town Pirates, are really good today. I'm really happy for him. He's got his second book coming out. Just give him a plug. Well, I was in there for 6 months. And my daughter could come and stay with me. She was a lot older by then. You know, she was like 9 years old now, 8 years old. And I really tried in and out, really worked hard. I worked on the flower store up at the Angel Islington. I did many different things. I laid floors for people, which didn't work. And I got sacked loads of times. And I went back to printing, couldn't do it anymore. Just was failed and tumbled for years. Tried to go back and work in the clubs. That wasn't happening and kept being late. And then 2003, I managed to get some funding. And I went off to a treatment centre in Weston-super-Mare. I do that because it's in that direction with me living in Bath. And I was in the treatment centre number 8, this was by now. So there's lots of funding being thrown around in those times. And basically what happened was I was in there for 30 days. Thinking I'm Charlie Big Potatoes, I know how to do treatment and everything else, I'm going to get clean. And 30 days clean, I smuggled my girlfriend into the treatment centre and didn't get caught. It's far too clued up for that. But the other clients knew, and the policy was, let's say something about someone that needs to be said. And of course, the whole group turned on me and said, Frankie sneaked his girlfriend in. So the counsellors grouped me and threw me out. They called the police, actually, and the police come and got me and took me to the train station, put me on a train. I was going to get off at Bristol and go shoplifting down St Paul's because I was like really hurting, 30 days clean, thrown out of treatment. And that's why it wasn't.
How old was you then?
32. 32.
Oh, okay.
So 32. No, 32. I'm confused. Either 32 or 42. 2003. No, I must have been 42. Yeah, I was 42 because I first came in when I was 32. Now I'm 42. And I went back to a meeting in North London called Pick Up the Pieces that Turkish Dennis had started. And, it's not named after any NA thing from out of the book. It was, was it the Average White Band? It wasn't a Fatback Band, Average White Band, Pick Up the Pieces. It was just NA was at the time. Yeah. Just NA.
I don't even know. To be honest with you, I don't know the song, but what
you don't know the tune?
Not really. Maybe if I hear it. But what did stand out for me then was when you said pick up the pieces, and it kind of really made sense. Like going to a meeting after everything that you've been through, trying to get clean, keep on trying, and then all of a sudden you're going to a meeting called picking up the pieces.
Yeah.
Rehab. So it kind of really.
It was sorry, Sol. It was the average. It was the Average White Band, So. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I was going to jump that on, but I opened it in the wrong thing to play the music. You have to use just anyone, if you're listening, you got to use the Brave browser, and then it drops the adverts out. It was Average White Band. So I went to there very desperate, 30 days. I was living in a hostel in Stroud Green Road, and my life just became about getting clean. And then when I threw myself in with a few guys from up Northumberland Park, Ronnie, Larry, those guys. I'd just give them a shout. We started an agency called Bubic, which was called Bringing Unity Back into the Community. And I was like, set this agency up with these, was a founding member with these 6 other black guys, really lovely guys. But they used to take the piss out of me, man. Can talk about reverse racism. Yeah, they used to call me Eminem. It's like fucking, it was like, and Token as well. They used to call me. Used to have fun with them, But we did that for about a year. It was really successful, but I had to concentrate on me. I went back into treatment. I was clean. I went back into treatment down in Chelsea, a place called Sharp, which was in Redcliffe Gardens. It isn't there anymore. And hence my life was not about work. It wasn't about family. It was just about what I'd now learned, this language about getting well. And also I trained, as you do, when you're 30 days clean, you want to be a drug counsellor. So I become a drug counsellor.
Okay.
I was working for an agency called Mainliners, where we used to give out needles to people around Brixton area. I did that for about 2 years on one of those outreach things, and working with the prostitutes up Brixton Hill, giving out condoms, and it's just all those different things I was comfortable with. When I made the decision to stop, when I first properly let go, when I realized that my life had to take a different direction, I realized that I'd got that moment where I was at that place where, I was desperate, and in desperation, I didn't want to use anymore. I didn't want to use it. Had gone, and but But it didn't stop me from doing stupid things. I was still doing silly things. And, you know, I did the 12-step program thing quite quickly. And I got quite some support with that. And I just kept running with it and running with it. And now, because of that, because of getting involved in treatment, because of working, that opened up loads of opportunities. And I did that for a few years. And then all of a sudden, I'd changed sponsors by this time. My sponsor was living out in America, a fairly a lovely guy called Mickey Bush, who really, really helped me. He was renowned out there as a circuit sharer. But I met him. We was going up to Snowdonia in it was European convention, and I was sharing, doing a talk there at for the European Convention Narcotics Anonymous, and I was 2 years clean, and I met the guy, and he made a lot of sense to me. So I kind of chased him around. It took a year to get some courage together, and my life changed dramatically from there. 3 years clean, I started dating again, as opposed to instead of trying to sleep with girls. I went out to California for the first time. You know, I was embarrassed. 43, 44 years old. I've never been outside of Europe. So I've done everywhere in Europe, but never been outside of Europe. So I went to California, got shown around. My wife had a sponsor who came from California, who was a biker chick, who has a couple of Harley Davidsons and so on. So our world really, really started to rock and change. Our children had grown up. My daughter by this time had children of her own, was going through her own struggles. My stepson, my wife's boy, who's now in recovery, he was going through his own ketamine world. He's now 30 years old and coming up to a year clean, and in university in Southampton. He's doing really, really good, but I don't tell him that. I'm his stepdad, you know. I don't try and be the cool dad, you know. I'm not trying. You know what I don't like? I don't like it when you're walking down the street and you see the cool dad and they put the Metallica t-shirt on their kid. I think leave the kid alone. Let them wear their K-pop stuff, you know. But resentment or wind up aside, yeah, things are really kind of did really well. You know, after 8 years further on, everything had changed. I got out of working in therapy and I moved into working into art. My sponsor really supported me and helped me make that massive change from that trade to working in art. He basically said to me, it took me a year to work this out. He said, what you need to do is find out what you like and then see if you can make some money doing it. So I knew I always wanted to be in art. So I started getting involved in doing some art and being involved as an intern in a gallery. And then in the end, I ended up running a gallery, and then I ran another gallery, and then I went to work for Red Bull and I ran their gallery for a while. And then I went and got my own gallery. And yeah, things were good for a while, but it's a little bit like you sell pictures really well and then the winter comes along, you don't sell anything. And if you don't have that thing that we learned about having some savings or a prudent reserve as such, you don't make it through the bad times. So I wasn't really business skilled enough. To have a gallery and sell art is a luxury. Normally it's for people who have been hedge funders who want something to do. It's a good place to have parties, you know, and meet people. And I met a different group of people. I met people who pay £2,000 and buy a picture and hang it on the wall. Well, I'd never really met people like that, you know, but through the gallery world, I started to meet people who would spend £2,000 and hang it on the wall, you know, £2,000 plus. So things started to be a bit different. Pardon?
Hedge funders? People like hedge funders?
No, people who just have a lot of money.
Okay.
People who actually do have
We're talking
a lot
like
of money.
Middle class.
People who's got 6 or 7 companies, people who inherit parents' monies. one guy I know, for example, I won't blow him up, but for example, really famous vinegar company. You'd think, oh, inherited it, got a lot of money. You
How
know,
did it feel
so
to be in that world, though, Frankie, coming from where you come from? What was it like to kind of be rubbing
I
shoulders
felt
with people?
on it. Honestly, I really felt like, why didn't I get here earlier?
Okay.
Because what it felt was as if I'd stepped into a polite world with polite people, and we weren't breaking our balls to try and do things. It was like one of those things. I'd stepped into a world. It was a bit like the jewellery when I first started out with. We're making the gold and that stuff. It was a luxury trade. And when you're in a luxury trade, you're not 9 to 5. Everything's like, you know,
Yeah.
don't come in unless you look okay. Look after
Oh.
yourself. What have you got to do today? Go to the chiropodist and get your hair cut. And I'm a little bit, say a little bit. No, I am that kind of working class, middle class kid who does want to go and get his nails done and want to go and get me hair cut. And I like being, what they call that? They used to call it metrosexual, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, I
Good.
don't want to be a guy liner. I don't want to wear
No.
eyeliner.
But you want to
But,
look after yourself, yeah. No.
yeah, I like that. I like that. I like,
Listen,
you know, but
I'm the same, man.
you have to be
You know,
careful though when you're working class. Otherwise, you end up with a Montclair jacket on. You know, you have to be careful not to be that kind of cunt.
Frank,
To be honest, sorry
mate,
swearing.
listen,
But
yeah, that's all right. Listen, I get it, mate. Like, listen, I only started wearing flip flops and had my toes out in the last 4 or 5 years. I've never used to have my toes out, mate. And when I did get them out, I made sure they were looking bloody good. You get me?
yeah, of
I'd go
course.
get a pedicure and all that. Because I mean, it's not really cool when you're in the East London and you're walking around with flip flops, mate. It's like it's not the. I know the kids at the moment they're all wearing sliders with socks, and it was like kind of thing. But mate, it's not good, man, because you need to be able to learn to run. Well, this is the world I came from, anyway. Yeah, you need to be able to learn to that. You know, you got to be protective. But
somehow
anyway,
I skipped the sliders and socks, and I've kind of done that 60-year-old where this is gonna. If you thought I was cool by watching this at all, I'm now gonna destroy it because I moved to the croc.
You got the Crocs.
Once you get to the Crocs, you know, the Crocs is all about having a big belly, because then you don't have to bend over to tie anything up or anything, because, you know, so
Hey, listen,
yeah.
you got Crocs, I got these strap kind of like, I don't even know what to call them. Yeah, I've been told they look like old man, Christian, Jesus Creeper.
Yeah, but there's a reason for old man stuff, because old man wear stuff that's comfortable. My dad said to me once, he said one day you'll wear comfortable clothes, not fashion clothes. And he was right. I wear comfortable clothes today. But, you know, just bringing all the... Go on, sorry, mate.
Yeah, no, go on, carry on. I'm listening.
I would just say, just bringing all this forward, basically, it's kind of... I stopped the galleries after a while because I had to give that up because my wife became more ill. And one of the things we had to learn to do was to, you know, move. We had to learn that, you know, London's was starting to wear us down. We needed to move. So we moved out of London. We live in a lovely place in Bath, in North Somerset, Banksy territory, ideal for me. You know, I do quite a bit of Instagram these days, but I look after my wife. I'm a carer for my wife, and I've got a dog. I do what I call my meditation every morning. I go out for an hour walk with a dog as early as possible. Normally try and do break a day. And I'm just kind of really downsized everything because it's all about health and happiness. When I got diagnosed 5 years ago with lung disease, I didn't realize how bad it was or was going to become. And from the experience of people that are older than me, who have gone before me, who I go up and ask, that's something, if I could pass anything on to anyone, I would say to them, speak to your elders, even if they are batshit crazy, have a listen. Because one of the things that a lot of them said was, slow up. If you've got a roof over your head and you've got good food and your clothes are okay, you know, chillax, man. Just take it easy. Health and happiness, health and happiness. And they're right. I had a couple of friends die this year who are younger than me. And I'm like, I'm open-mouthed. I'm shocked. When George died this year, I've known George 25 years. I was shocked. Dean rang me up crying. I was shocked. You know, people don't live that long, you know, not from our world. So,
well, I mean, it's quite, I think it's very normal as we get older that we do want to slow down a little bit and we do want to kind of live. I suppose it's like pre-retirement or retiring. Like we can't do the stuff that we used to. Yeah, and I think your taste changes. Well, I don't know about you, but even though I'm 48, like I like the slower pace of life, man. I don't want to be in and out.
I totally get you. I've always been a kind of up-to-date person, but I listen to trip hop now. I've got Apple Music, you know, I listen to Chilled Cow, you know, on the radio. I've got all the melody kind of, you know, a bit like back in the day listening to dub music puffing, you know. I've got all the chilled stuff. I'll give myself tasks, mental tasks. So even though I do still read and I learn, I'm constantly learning. I've never lost that, even from not going to school. I keep learning. I'll give myself tasks. When I go up to Royal Victoria Park here in Bath, I look around and I go, what sort of tree is that? Oh, that's a sycamore tree. Oh, look, there's a horse chestnut tree and stuff like that. I constantly have to keep doing that. I'm dyslexic as well. And one of the things what comes along with having dyslexia is that thing of, oh, what was that called? What was that name? What was that? It's not dementia. It's just you don't kind of stick it together. You know it, but you don't stick it together. So you forget people's names and how to spell and stuff like that. So I try and keep mental exercise going by, you know, constantly learning and understanding. My whole view in life has changed. I'm not religious anymore. I was religious once. I'm not religious anymore. But that's going Sunday school when I was a kid. That was kind of, I used to say, when people say to me, so you're a lapsed Catholic? And I used to go, no, I was taken hostage. I didn't have a choice. It happened to me before I was able to speak up. Now I'm not religious. Now my children are grown up. Now I've got grandchildren. My priority is to love and look after my wife, eat well, live. I've got friends around me, you know. I've got that thing of I have people around me in different countries who ring me up and who want to speak to me and so on. And it's like, I don't have that wanderlust anymore. I don't want to escape. To be honest, I would like to live in a warmer climate. I would move to California and live there because I've got a lot of friends there if I had the money, but we just can't afford to. So living here in the West Country works for us at the moment, and really, really kind of happy with that. So yeah, kind of bring us up to date.
Frankie, you know, I can listen to you all day, man. Like your whole story, where you come from. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
I won't tell you where the money's buried.
Okay.
I've forgotten.
So, just quickly, how many years are you abstinent now? Just to kind of like, so we kind of.
I will be 18 years after trying for 28. I will be 18 years on the 5th of May, 2021. Wow. 15th. No, I'm trying to get extra time there. 15th of May, 2021. When I get there, I will be 18 years old. I think I can drink again then. I'm not sure. 18.
Okay. And quickly, so if there's one thing you could have changed in your life, what would it be, Bob?
Oh, if there's one thing I could have changed, it all depends how the change would have came about. But if there's one thing I could have changed, and that would have been go to art school instead of becoming a jeweler.
Okay.
Because with jewellery, my perspective become narrow and was about money. I believe that if I'd gone to art school, I'd have had my world. I like films, I like books, I like pictures and paintings. I like looking at women that look dressed well, you know.
Okay, brilliant. So if there's anybody who's listening, what could you say to them? I mean, so if there's a young Frankie listening right now, is there anything you could say to them that I suppose can maybe help them along on their journey or make a difference?
Well, the young Frankie, if it's today or if I jumped in a time capsule and went back, I would say stop smoking. That's been the worst thing you've ever done, is smoking. With hindsight, not because of having the lung disease, it's just that how it's affected me on so many different levels would be stop the smoking. And it stinks, especially once you stop. The other thing would be go to art school, sleep with more girls, and try and be in a band. Seriously, have some fun. Yeah.
Have fun.
Not for that, you know, because even ugly people who play the guitar get good-looking girlfriends, you know. So, you know, there's yeah. And the other thing is, it'd be really beneficial to back all this up instead of trying to make out I know everything.
Yeah.
Is spend 2 years getting a business degree or qualification, just so that instead of trying to wing it all the time and making out I understand shit, you know, that would be really helpful, I think. And yeah, move to the south of France.
Brilliant. Well, listen, mate, I wish you all the best. Thank you, man. It's been amazing having you on here, man, as usual.
Thank you, so.
If people are listening, please don't forget, subscribe, hit the like button, share it on all your social medias, man. And once again, Frankie, man, it's awesome, man, and well done, man, and happy birthday to you, man.
Thank you, mate.
When this show probably comes out, you've already probably turned 60 by then, so I'll just say happy birthday now. Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful if you could add a little bit at the end of it to say, you know, if you have been affected by any of these issues. You know, after EastEnders, after someone's been stabbed up or something.
You know what I say to that? I say, deal with it. You know what I mean? But listen, it's always amazing, man. Thank you so much, Frankie, man. Awesome.
Thank you, Sol. Thank you for asking me.
They say that life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. On this show, we get to understand what that actually means. Everyone's got a story, but not everyone gets to share theirs. So remember, hit the subscribe button, press like, so we can continue to spread the message that change is possible even in the darkest of places.